I just first want to say how happy I am to be standing in front of you today. There is truly nothing more special than sharing your story with your people. And you, as part of this Kinkaid community that I joined over 30 years ago, oh my gosh, that's a really long time, you are definitely my people. I came to Kinkaid in the 6th grade, but after 3 years, my challenging childhood, it got the best of me. And at 14 years old, I ran away from home. And in high school, I moved back and forth from Dallas to Houston. I returned to Kinkaid my senior year, but I was battling mono, pneumonia, and then anorexia. It was the most tumultuous time in my home life. But my days at Kinkaid, they brought me so much joy, and I wouldn't trade them for the world. I graduated with so many useful skills, as Christine said, that I use from Kinkaid every day. I attended Tulane on an academic scholarship, and I loved it there. After all, what's not to love about New Orleans? But I was pushed so hard to achieve that I started getting constant migraines. And I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown at 20 years old. I was taking 21 credit hours a semester, working nonstop on political campaigns, and I had an active social life too. What can I say? I had this mindset that if someone else could do it, I could too. And that created this life without limits. Unfortunately, that mindset landed me in the hospital for the first of many stress-related doctor's visits and therapy visits too. I graduated in college in 3 years just to get on with things. I graduated law school, top of my class. I took the bar exam. I got married a month later, and I went to work at Vincent Elkins a month after that. I was the star associate, and I had this precious newborn baby, and everybody saw me as the happiest of them all. But in truth, I was pretty unhappy, and I was certainly living an unhealthy life. I was stressed out, burnt out, and I was sick all the time. Those migraines came back, and I was puking in the office bathroom regularly. I suffered from sinus infections and strep and irritable bowel syndrome, and my marriage was falling apart too. I ate so much processed food to stay thin, and I drank so much Diet Dr. Pepper, yes, that I had the firm put it in our soda machines. True story. I was scheduling my day so tightly that not a moment went unwasted. I was multitasking everything, which meant I wasn't paying attention to anything. I was working while I was eating. I was texting while I was getting dressed. And even my showers, they were efficient and effective. I have always been addicted to busyness. For the first time publicly, I'm going to say this out loud. I am a busyness addict. Any other busyness addicts in the room? Show of hands. I know you're out there. I see you in the back. I know you're here. Let me ask you, how many times have you used the word busy to describe yourself or someone else just this week? Addiction, yes, you can relate. Addiction sounds like a really strong word, doesn't it? But that's exactly what this busyness did to me. Addiction is a behavior or a set of behaviors that you keep doing despite adverse consequences, like puking in the bathroom. Addiction is chronic and progressive. Busyness is truly an addiction. Brené Brown says that when we start having 12-step meetings for busyaholics, we're going to have to rent out entire football stadiums. She also says that as a culture, we have bought into this idea that if we stay busy enough, the truth of our lives won't catch up with us. And I would add that you are actually rewarded for this behavior. So we're certainly not treating it as unhealthy, even though clearly it is. Speaking of unhealthy, at 34 years old, I got shingles. Yes, shingles at 34 years old. Who gets that? Isn't that an old person's disease? Yes, right? But I did. Nobody knew what I was going through. I was numbing myself because it felt too hard to be myself. It felt too hard to deal with the things that felt bad. And unlike alcohol and drugs and food and shopping, okay, honesty, maybe I shopped a little too. I was numbing myself through the constant filling of time. Dr. Christina Hibbert, let me back up. Unlike alcohol and drugs, where people look down on you, with a busyness addiction, people revere you. They're enamored by your success, which fosters your addiction even further because you're doing it for affirmation and you're getting it. Dr. Christina Hibbert says that the difference between a full life and a busy life is the way it impacts you. A full life, you're healthy and you're happy, at least most of the time. And you're discovering meaning and purpose every day. But with a busy life, you feel like you can barely keep up, yet you keep adding on one more thing. You're more prone to stress and chronic illness and anxiety. And here's the big one for me. Your self-worth might just be tied up in that busyness. My recovery didn't happen overnight, but at some point I knew I wanted a different life. I had to realize that I needed to stop being that human doing and just be a human being. I was too busy doing and not focused on being, focused on my accomplishments and not myself. And while this journey is ongoing, it's not over today. I'm still in recovery. I have learned 3 simple tools that have helped me get to a life that I love, that is full, but not busy. They were to take care of myself, to live a life of integrity, and to figure out what brings me joy. So let's start with the first lesson learned, and that's all about self-care. Okay, so the puking, the steroids, the therapy for my marriage, none of that scared me. In fact, I thought if you're gonna live a big life, you're gonna be stressed out. Not true. On the other side, I will tell you, not true. But those shingles did. They scared me and told me I needed to take care of myself better. And I chose to do that by nourishing myself. So we joined a co-op where we got a box of fruits and vegetables every week. And when I started adding in all this fresh food and got rid of the processed food, the illnesses, they went away. I started feeling better. I had more energy. I felt great. And in 2007, now I had 2 young boys, Drew and Nathan, who are 3 and 6, and they're sitting here today with us. You can wave. And I noticed that this co-op changed their eating habits too. And one day, Drew called me over at a birthday party, and he said, "Mommy, do I have to eat this? And I looked down, and it was birthday cake. He said, it's too sweet. Do they have fruit? And I thought he was crazy. I mean, I hadn't even gotten there in my food choices. Over the next few months, I couldn't get out of my head what he said. I mean, I'm looking at this 6-year-old, and he has healthier eating habits than most adults that I know. And then I'm sitting at a Texans game, literally a Texans game in 2011, and I'm looking around what everybody's eating, and I'm frankly getting a little sick to my stomach. And I thought, if I can do this in my house, how do I do this for other families, particularly those in underserved neighborhoods? It was a really pivotal moment for me, because sitting there that day, I came up with this formula: produce distribution, nutrition education, plus a fun food experience could create communities of health through fresh food. And it could look like this. We could get access to fresh produce. We could have it delivered to the schools. We could have parents and community volunteers bag it up. We can have the kids trained with nutrition in the classroom, and parents through handbooks and tip sheets and recipes. And when they picked up their children, they would get 2 fresh bags of produce and a recipe sample, like you might find at your favorite H-E-B. So I started pitching this idea to everyone I knew. And I mean everyone I knew. Christine was here in the early years. She knows everyone I knew. And soon after that, all these community experts started getting on board. First, I got a KIPP school. They gave me 1 school to pilot the idea. Then I got Brian Green, the president of the Houston Food Bank, the largest food bank in the country. Then I got Dr. Srila Sharma, a professor of epidemiology at UT School of Public Health, focused on childhood obesity. And then I got Scott McClellan, the H-E-B guy. And together, this dream team, we built Brighter Bites, the national nonprofit that is changing the way that people view food. We started with 1 school in the east end of downtown Houston, 150 kids. Today, we have served over 300,000 people by delivering 25 million pounds of produce and hundreds of thousands of nutrition education materials in 6 cities. And the great thing is, not only have we sent out all this produce, but we know it's working because we study every family that we touch. We know the families are eating the produce while we give it to them, and that's great, but we're giving it to them. We know that 74% are maintaining the same levels when the program ends, afterwards. And 2 years later, we're studying these same families, and they're eating 19 more servings of produce a week. That means it's sustainable, the change is happening, and they're buying the produce on their own. And Brighter Bites created another life-changing opportunity for me. Scott McClellan and I, we spent so much time together that one day he just asked me to come work for him. And I thought he was kidding. I mean, what do I know about the grocery business? And the funny thing is, it was actually April Fool's Day 2014. But he wasn't. And today, I get to not only touch all these lives in the community through Brighter Bites, but I also touch millions of lives as the Director of Public Affairs at H-E-B. I turn my passion into my profession. Or as I like to say, I get to sprinkle the H-E-B fairy dust all over the community to make it a better place. I know what you're thinking now. I'm describing this, and you're thinking, oh my God, she's really busy. I know, but while I lead a full life, I am no longer intentionally busy. And I do that by taking care of myself. I prioritize self-care. It's not just what I do, it's who I am. I eat healthy and in moderation. I traded that Diet Dr. Pepper for lots and lots of fruits and vegetables and a few treats, which nourishes my body instead of depleting it. I practice yoga and I run a few miles rather than doing the marathons that just drilled me into the ground. I get 7 or more hours of sleep almost every night. And I also use my waking hours to rest and relax too. Sometimes that means meditation. Sometimes it means sitting on my couch reading. Sometimes it means putting on music and dancing around the room. Sometimes it means canceling my plans when I'm just too tired. And other times, it just means doing nothing. And while all these things are so important, the most important thing I do now is I speak kindly to myself. Gone are the days where I belittle myself for not being thin enough, or doing enough, or being a good enough mom. Now, I encourage myself, and I don't take it all so seriously. If that email has to wait till tomorrow, it's gonna be okay. If I run out of time in the morning and I can't make Drew's lunch and he has to buy it, it's gonna be okay too. And it's okay if my hair goes a little gray from time to time. Recently, Nathan walked in my room on dress uniform day. Does anybody get anxious on dress uniform day that a piece of the uniform is missing? Yes, I hear by the laughter that you can relate. Well, that day, Nathan left the entire uniform at his dad's house. But he came up with what I'm going to call a less attractive option. He had his pants high above his ankle. He had his tie just to his rib cage. And those blazer sleeves, they were so long from a hand-me-down that I couldn't even see those cute little fingers. Well, the old Lisa would have freaked out, would have thought, I can't send my child to school like that. It's so embarrassing. But the new Lisa thought, if he's okay, I'm okay. And we went to school calm and happy, and we got our day off to a great start. And you know what he said after school? He said, no one even noticed. The more important thing is that I keep a healthy state of mind so I'm not ruminating on the junk. Everything we do as parents has an impact on our children. They are the best meter of my mental health that there is. So if I stay healthy, so do they. And that brings me to my second lesson learned, which is living with integrity. In 2019, I declared that my definition of integrity is that everyone gets the same Lisa. That means my children, my family, my friends, and all the people in the communities that I serve through Brighter Bites and HEB. You might think that's a strange definition of integrity because Webster says that it's the quality of being honest. But to me, honesty is authenticity. And you can only be authentic if you are the same for everyone. A few years ago, an ex-boyfriend said to me while we were dating, he said, I just want the same Lisa that everybody else gets. And I don't think I get her because by the time you get home, you have nothing left. And over the years of waking up, I started to understand what he meant. And I didn't want that to happen with my most precious loved ones. I believe that you need to be intentional to accomplish most things in your life. And so I knew that my intentions had to be really clear here, that my children and my loved ones were the most important things in my life. And it didn't mean I couldn't have a big career, but I had to give them 100% too. And I do this by setting boundaries every day. I don't go to every event or gala. Sometimes I take Nathan to shoot hoops instead. I put their games and their plays and their activities on my calendar in the get-go, so I don't have to stress out and rush around mixing up my calendar to make it work later on. If I have to go to that gala, I don't work straight through. I come home and we spend a few hours together before I have to go out again. And on the flip side of setting boundaries, I actually practice all of these tools that I have learned to help me get better physically and mentally. On a recent trip to Marival Spa, I did an adventure challenge. This adventure challenge was very scary for me. I had to climb a pole 25 feet up in the air. Then I had to walk across a narrow plank. When I got up there, my heart was racing so fast, I felt like I could die, literally. And instead of going across in that crazy state, I made a different choice. I stood there and I just breathed. For 4 minutes. My heart rate dropped all the way back to normal. I walked across and I made it all the way. And when I got down, I was really excited, but not because I made it across, but because in a stressful situation, I made a better choice. Not perfect, but better. Now I schedule my days so I have energy any time of the day, especially for those that fill me up with joy. I don't take every meeting or every phone call. I don't make those extra calls to gossip or vent. We don't need more drama, right? And by prioritizing everything and planning, that's how I live the life that I want. And that brings me to my third lesson learned. And that was to figure out what brings me joy and do a shit ton of that. I was very caught up in a routine for a very long time. I would wake up, I would work out, I would tend to the kids, I would straighten my hair, I would go to work, I would even get my nails done because God forbid they looked bad. And then I realized over the years that I had a choice in how I spent my time. It wasn't that I didn't do my responsibilities, but I prioritized the things that brought me joy. This concept first dawned on me in 2012 when I was first building Brighter Bites. And I felt this passion swell inside of me every time I walked into a school and handed a child another piece of fruit. Or I got a state legislator on board, or another partner joined in the team. I'll never forget the time that a child literally chased me around the room for a second kale smoothie. It felt amazing to live this passion-driven life, this purpose-driven life. I'm still talking about that episode 7 years later, so it definitely filled me up. Here's the thing, I thought that the moments of joy would come at the milestones and the big events, but they were really so much simpler. I won't forget the time I was sitting watching a TV show with Drew, and he leaned over and he put his head on my shoulder. Or just sharing a meal without electronics. It was those moments when I showed up and I was present for my kids that they responded to. And it was that connection that filled me up with so much joy and calm that I wanted nothing more than those moments. And over the years, I started thinking about what brought me joy. And in 2018, I decided that real estate was no longer bringing me joy. So I talked to the heads at HEB about other opportunities. And because they knew my passion for the community, they asked if I would run public affairs, which is literally I get paid to make the community a better place. And it's the most joy I have ever felt professionally, except maybe Brighter Bites. Now that I know what joy feels like, I go after it. And not like that crazy, intense old Lisa way, but in a new, calm Lisa way. I don't overschedule, so the sweet moments can present themselves. I make time for the people that fill my bucket and for those that I fill theirs. Most of my days are like that now because I have realized that one more accomplishment is not going to change my self-worth or the joy that I feel. I have stopped trying to be that human doing, and I just live as a human being. I promise you, if you follow those 3 steps and you take care of yourself and you live with integrity and you figure out what brings you joy, you too can have a life that you love, that is full but not busy. Thank you.